welcome back to Questions of Life. This is the next part of our video with Paulette and with Velma exploring racism. Yeah.
Time's defeating us, so I'm going to move us on. You know, we started at the beginning with your story about how you were made to adjust rather than confronting those that were bullying you. And one of the things that I feel very, very strong, I think we as a leadership of this church feel very strongly, is that it is not for you to have to adjust to us. It is for us as white people to do the right thing, to live rightly. That doesn't just mean that we personally live rightly with you. It's that we support, deal with what we see or learn of or hear, that we stand up. I think it's one of the important biblical understandings is that we stand alongside and for those who are oppressed in any shape or form. So the last part of what I want to ask you is, what do you think practically, what kind of things can people like me do?
I have a list of different things, but one of the things that comes straight to my mind is I was on a Zoom call recently with some folks from Portland, Oregon, and they had a white official guy on there, part of the government, and they were having a lot of the troubles in that area because of the George Floyd incident. And that official was saying about 2 o'clock in the night, they were there and they were praying, because it's a Christian group, and they were praying about that it would die down that night. And they gave me an opportunity on that call, and I was one of color of about 30 or so people. And they asked me if I would talk. And they said to me, what is it? A similar kind of question. And this guy said, you know, can I just say, Paulette, I'm sorry. And that really brought a lot of healing. And I said, if other people could actually appreciate what we've gone through or what we go through on a daily basis, whether that is people are unconscious bias or whether they are consciously doing it, we are facing it. That is our reality. But if people could actually be a little bit more tolerant of people with color, and ask sometimes even for forgiveness if God would put that in your heart to do. And because when that man said to me, I forgive you, I started to think about Gary and Darren and all those boys at school that beat me up time and time again. And a big wound, it was like there was a healing and there was some soothing in that wound. And when people are asking for forgiveness, it is to do it meaningfully. I have friends who are in Sutton who said to me that I'm being too sensitive about wanting to address the colour thing, but they don't understand, so I have to forgive them. But why can't you educate yourself? Why can't you talk to black people? Why can't you watch programs and make certain that you have an understanding? And also talk to God and say, God, what can I do? How can I pray for people of colour? And the list goes on, but Velma, you might want to say a few things, because I've got a whole list of things.
Yes, right. I think one of the reasons why we thought it's a good thing for us to share tonight is the fact that people may not be aware of what's happening. So I believe when you become aware of it, then you need to change your thinking. Like she was saying about, there may be an unconscious bias because this is what you've known, you've grown to accept it. I mean, there are some people in the world who believe black people can only amount to being cashiers in a supermarket, or they can only be the cleaners or the people who, do the bin things. They can amount to anything. But black people can do anything. They can learn anything, and they can become anything they want to be. So once you find that out, that well, maybe I've had some just cultural bias because this is how we've been living all along. So if you become aware, try to find a way to change your thinking, that it is just, I would like to call it varying shades of skin tones. That's the difference between us, really. And then there's the culture bit that make us think certain ways. But it's really varying shades of skin tones. Because nobody is white and nobody is really black. They're dark. And also, that we change our thinking. And the Bible talks about changing our minds so that we can prove what is good and acceptable. And then also, after you've learned and you've changed your mind, educate yourself about some of the things that are happening that you didn't weren't even aware of. Those blind spots that you didn't know you had. Talk to people. Get to know black people. Get to know people of different shades of color, They're just like you. When you take the skin off, it's all the same thing under there. You've got this identical same tissues under there. The blood the same, the veins the same, everything under there. The bones all the same. Okay, so we got similar stuff. And then ask questions, we said.
And also one of the books that we were recommending is a book that, Cath, you said that you've acquired.
Yeah, it's called Me and White Supremacy by Layla Said, and it was recommended to me by someone who's part of a book group, and 4 of them meet together, read a chapter of it, and then discuss it, and it has been revolutionary. So they're all white middle-class ladies. One of them's a Christian, 3 of them aren't Christians, and they said it has just blown their mind to be thinking about things that just never crossed their minds before, things they took for granted, just seeing life in a very different way. They highly recommend it. She's not a Christian, doesn't matter, but there's questions, there's reflections at the end of every chapter, so you're challenged to think about, what is my worldview? What is my perception on these things? Do I recognise my privilege? Do I recognise those that aren't privileged? So that comes highly recommended.
Yeah.
And also, there was one thing I wanted to say is that there's a trauma healing course, and I'm not just plugging this in here, but there's a trauma healing course that is very helpful in helping people who, and this is for people who suffer from racism, so this is for people on the other side, who from our side, who may need help in managing these things, and it helps you to learn how to forgive and how to move on. And it's not easy, especially when violence and things are affecting your body, or like I was seeing this man who took him by the head. Somebody did the same thing to another guy a few years ago, and that man had brain damage because of the way it twisted his neck. Fortunately for him, God protected him that night and nothing bad happened. So there are things we can do. Educate yourself, ask questions, check your own self, where your blind spot is, where your unconscious bias is, and then
search on YouTube for educational stuff. Don't be silent is one of the main things. Don't be silent. When you see things that are wrong, please don't be silent. Stand up for what is right.
Yeah.
And you may not be racist, but you need to be anti-racist.
Yeah.
Okay? Because there's a difference. Yes. You may not be racist, and I think majority of people are not racist. But this unconscious stuff, but you're not anti-racist because it's not happened to you, you sort of pass by.
Yes. So we had a question here from Robin in the audience about their great strengths, Paulette and Velma, and also about being a passive white person.
I've just told you a snippet of what's gone on with us and what's gone on with us in this area. For some people, it's far, far worse than this. And so when you're seeing it and hearing it, my dad who lives in the States, I couldn't believe it one day when I saw, we'd just come back from barbecue, and the police stopped our car. And I never, ever had seen my dad the way he was. He was so aggressive to those police, but they in turn were aggressive to him. But I think it probably started with my dad first. But when you have, and this guy is really mild and so chillaxed. I absolutely love my dad for being so chilled. But it was like he became a different person because of this police person that had confronted him. And it for me, and that was, as a child I saw that, but for me, as an adult, I recognise that it's because he's been faced with it over and over. So he tells me about, in the 60s, being in this country and having the skinheads. And he's told me about lots of different things that have happened to him over time. And that build-up then is when you are confronted with somebody, it's like you explode. And it's so sad. But unless you get the healing and the healing and the healing, then, you know, you've got all this pent-up anger within you, which is quite unfortunate, but that's the way it is sometimes.
But I think Rob's so right. I think the way that you just gently put it out there, I think that when there's aggression, you can feel a little bit taken aback, but your grace and your gentleness and the very fact that you're not bitter, you're not holding on to it, is just incredible. Absolutely, which is why I think that will have spoken to so many people and opened their eyes, which is the first thing we wanted to do. And then it's and don't be passive. And I think that was, as Rob said, such an important point, that you can be not a racist, but you want to stand against it. And that's a huge thing that we just take for granted. Oh, I'm not racist, but what am I doing to stand up and stop it? So I think you were brilliant.
Well, you know, and then sometimes too, you may think, well, I'm just on my own, what can I do? And you know, we can feel helpless that way, you know, even if you see something wrong and you say, well, I'm just on my own. But what I think can happen is, if you're on your own, but you see and you know something's wrong, well, find somebody else to join you. Yeah. Get other people to join you to do something about it. Because if one person can't do it, well, a whole group can do it. Like, you know, even if you're writing petitions, or you're making a stand, or you're going together. I remember when we first came in this country, when they had Make Poverty History. Well, we all went down into Birmingham, we were on the street, you know, and we were there marching to make poverty history. So we can get together and do things. And I strongly believe the church can be in the front of these things.
It should be. And
join together to do things. If maybe one church or one person can't do it, but we can work together when we see there's something wrong, because we're not only commanded to, you know, to speak out for the poor and the oppressed, but it makes good for living together.
One of the things is, and then I know we got a question at the back, based on what you've just said, Velma, is even having forums in which we as people of colour can meet together. Because me starting to talk to Velma and Velma talking to somebody else, all of a sudden we've got shared experiences, and it makes such a difference when you're like, oh my gosh, you faced that one too? And it's like, it's almost like, okay, I'm not going insane that this is happening to me. And it feels so much better when you've got somebody that you can talk with and share about your experiences. But even we've got a neighbourhood prayer group, well, we did have before COVID, and one of the ladies there, Diana, she worked in Ghana, and you know, she was telling me about some stuff that happened there, but some stuff that's happened here. But just even her as a white lady talking to me about some of the racism that she hears and understands about, it's so comforting. It really, really is. But I guess you just don't feel like you're by yourself, you know? And I think one of the things that Velma told me quite early on was try and integrate as much as you can and try and get involved, you know? So I've tried to do my little bit within my limitations And just even sometimes being up on this stage, and I love singing. I'm not the best of singers, but I do like singing. So, just even coming and being a part of this singing group and the welcoming, and Velma gets involved in a lot of things so that people can see us. So especially when I'm doing welcoming, I see people almost relax when I'm there welcoming them, and they're a person of colour. And, it's like, oh, there's somebody else here. And I think if we all can encourage people of colour to participate and be a part of every aspect of this church, then we will have a lovely cultural church. Because Birmingham's multicultural after all,
We're going to have to stop at this point, and Cath's going to close us down in a moment. But I just want to underscore that. I want to say it's very, very important that we stand against things, that we don't just say, well, it's not me that's doing it. That if we're the person in the queue and we're queue jumped, we say, no, I'm sorry, it's not me. Mm-hmm. If we're in an office place and there are comments being made about someone, that we say that is not acceptable. It's really important. There's a story that Jesus told about, about the day of judgment and whether people are with Jesus or not. And he says that the factor that enabled people to be with Jesus for eternity. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was a stranger, you welcomed me in. There is a proactive command to us who are part of a dominant culture to make sure that we don't just say, I'm not part of it, but that we stand against it. I want to say a huge thank you to you for coming and sharing this with us and having the courage to do that. I do want to say we are deeply sorry that you've had to live and that you do have to live this way in our town, and that's wrong, and that your children have to live this way in our schools, and that's wrong. So I want to say a huge thank you, and I'll hand back to Cath.
Just one thing, just picking up on something that you said about the police, and I know your experiences have really not been great. But what I would encourage us to do as Christians is to pray for the police, but also to not give up on the police. Because I know many men and women, part of our church and further afield, that are God-fearing, honest, not racist, and are prepared to stand up. And I think if we're in a situation where we see something and call the police and we don't get the response that we think we should, I think we should pursue it. We should take that further and make a complaint and follow it up. But I understand both of your families and your experiences have been not great with the police, but there are many great policemen and women. So as with every section of society, there's the good, there's the bad and the ugly, and there are some good ones out there as well. But we need to stand up and say something when it's not right. Most definitely. Can I echo Donald's thank you? We love you guys. We're so proud to have you as part of our church. You enrich us and make us such a better community. And I am just in awe of your ability and God's strength to forgive, to be positive, to try and encourage us to be different. And I love that. So thank you. What we want to say, if there's anybody out there this evening, and it sounds like a BBC programme, but I want to say if there's anybody out there that's been really affected by what we've been talking about, it may be that you've been or are going through racism, or it may be that there have been other areas in your life that you've been hurt and you're struggling. The first thing I want to encourage you with is that there is a God who knows you. There is a God who loves you. There is a God who is able to meet you in your pain and your trauma and everything that you're going through. He's able to love you. And as these wonderful women have shown, he is able to tenderly nurse you and put you back together. and enable you to not just survive, but these women are thriving in the midst of everything that's going through. It is incredible. They have such a love for life, and the people that God's created them to be, they're living their best lives and going for it, and I love that. And that's possible for all of us. And I want to encourage you that God is interested in your life and can help. And if you've got questions about that, then do get in touch with us. Or if there are things that you want to ask of Paulette and Velma, I'm sure there are ways that we can facilitate a conversation, ways that maybe there's advice that they can give, and ways that they can speak into your life and to encourage you. We hope you found tonight shocking, encouraging, helpful, and challenging. We want to stand with these guys. We want to see an end to racism in Sutton Coldfield, in this country, and in the world. And we hope that you'll join with us. A reminder as we see all the harvest stuff as well, join with us on Sunday at our 3 live streams, 8:30, 10:30 and 6:30. And then on Monday we have Cafe Church. And we're looking at the whole subject of resilience. Maybe we should get you two to come and join us, because you have shown incredible resilience and not giving up in the most extreme and horrific of circumstances. Take care, everybody, and we'll say goodbye from us, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.
Cheerio. Bye-bye. Well done.
Well done, guys.
Very well done.
Weren't they good?
Now